Section 1. A shock in cartography. The vanishing map. Look at a map of historic Palestine from just over 100 years ago. Now, look at a map of the Palestinian territories today, in 2025. Side by side, the change is genuinely shocking. What was once a contiguous territory, a single piece of land under one name, has become a series of smaller, disconnected islands. The land available to Palestinians has shrunk dramatically, step by step, over the course of a century. This essay will walk you through that timeline. It will use simple words and clear dates to explain how this happened. We will look at the key moments that redrew the borders and reshaped the lives of millions. The story is not just about lines drawn by politicians or armies. It is a human story. Families who lost their homes, farmers who lost their fields, children who grew up in the shadow of conflict and uncertainty. We will explore the causes behind each major shift in the landscape: imperial decrees, modern-day military operations. Section 2. The Ottoman Twilight and a British Promise. Before the First World War, the land we now call Israel and Palestine was not a separate country. It was a region within the vast Ottoman Empire which had ruled for 400 years. This area was often referred to as Southern Syria, or simply Palestine Muslims Christians, a small Jewish community. They lived alongside each other, mostly in villages and towns. Jerusalem, Jaffa, Haifa life under Ottoman rule had challenges, but the land was a single administrative unit. There were no hard borders splitting communities. As today, people could travel from Galilee in the north to Gaza in the south. Everything began to change with World War I. The Ottoman Empire sided with Germany and lost the war. Its Middle Eastern territories were carved up by victorious European powers, Britain, France. In 1922, the League of Nations gave Britain a mandate to govern Palestine. Britain was supposed to prepare the local population for self-rule, but a promise from 1917 had already set a different course. Section 3. A new wave immigration and rising tensions. Following the Balfour Declaration and the start of the British Mandate, the doors to Palestine opened for increased Jewish immigration. Many Jews fleeing persecution and rising anti-Semitism, Eastern Europe, Nazi Germany saw Palestine as a place of refuge and the fulfillment of a long-held dream. The numbers tell a stark story of demographic change. 1918, the Jewish population was less than 10% of the total. By 1936, it had risen to nearly 30%. By 1947, Jewish people made up about 1/3 of the population. They owned around 7% of the land. This rapid change in population created enormous friction. The Arab population, who had lived on the land for generations, saw the influx as a direct threat to their future. Their culture and their own aspirations for independence felt at risk. They feared they would be displaced and become a minority in their own country. This fear led to protests, strikes, and eventually, widespread violence. The Arab Revolt from 1936 to 1939 was a major uprising against British rule and against Jewish immigration. The British responded with harsh measures. The violence further deepened the divide between the two communities. By 1947, Great Britain had had enough, Caught between its conflicting promises and unable to stop the escalating violence, it decided to hand the Palestine problem over to the newly formed United Nations. The UN formed a special committee that traveled to the region and came back with a dramatic proposal partition. On November 29, 1947, the UN General Assembly voted for Resolution 181, which recommended dividing the land of Mandate Palestine into two independent states, one Arab, one Jewish. The city of Jerusalem, holy to all three major religions, was to be placed under international control as a separate entity. The partition plan allocated approximately 55% of the land to the proposed Jewish state and 45% to the proposed Arab state. This division was highly controversial from the start. Although the Jewish population was only about 1/3 of the total, Their state was given the larger share of the land, including the fertile coastal plain. The Arab state was allocated the highlands of the West Bank, the Gaza Strip, and parts of the Galilee. Jewish leaders led by David Ben-Gurion accepted the plan. Arab leaders and the Palestinian population, however, vehemently rejected the plan. They saw it as a grave injustice. The UN vote immediately triggered a civil war within Palestine. The line drawn on the map by the UN was not a line of peace, but a battle line. The British mandate officially ended on May 14, 1948. On that same day, Jewish leaders in Tel Aviv declared the establishment of the State of Israel. The very next day, armies from 5 neighboring Arab countries, Egypt, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, and Iraq, invaded, launching the 1948 Arab-Israeli War. The newly declared State of Israel fought for its survival against the invading forces and local Palestinian militias. The war was brutal and lasted for about 10 months, ending in a series of armistice agreements in 1949 that established new de facto borders. For Palestinians, this period is known as the Nakba, or the catastrophe. During the war, an estimated 750,000 Palestinians, more than half of the Arab population, fled or were expelled from their homes in the territory that became Israel. Hundreds of Palestinian villages were depopulated and subsequently destroyed. These refugees and their descendants now number in the millions, scattered across the West Bank, Gaza, Jordan, Lebanon, Syria. They lost their homes, their land, and their way of life, creating a refugee crisis that remains unresolved to this day. When the fighting stopped in 1949, the map looked very different from the UN partition plan. Israel now controlled 78% of what had been Mandate Palestine, a significant increase from the 55% proposed by the UN. The planned Arab state never came into existence. For 18 years, the 1949 Armistice Lines, or the Green Line, held. But in June 1967, another war dramatically redrew the map. In a swift and decisive conflict known as the Six-Day War, Israel launched a preemptive strike against Egypt, Jordan, Syria. In less than a week, the Israeli military achieved a stunning victory. It captured the Sinai Peninsula, the Gaza Strip, the West Bank, East Jerusalem, the Golan Heights. Suddenly, Israel controlled vast new territory, tripling the land under its authority. This war marked the beginning of what the international community calls the occupation of the Palestinian territories. The West Bank, home to over 1 million Palestinians, was now under Israeli military rule. The Gaza Strip was now under Israeli military rule. Israel immediately annexed East Jerusalem, declaring it its eternal, undivided capital, a move not recognized by most of the international community. The occupation brought another wave of Palestinian refugees, an estimated 300,000 people fleeing the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. For those who stayed, life changed drastically. They lived under a military administration that controlled every aspect of life, from travel permits to building licenses. Shortly after the war, the controversial construction of Israeli settlements began. Israeli citizens moved into the newly occupied territories, building homes and communities on land Palestinians considered part of their future state. These settlements, deemed illegal by most of the world, created facts on the ground that made a contiguous Palestinian state more difficult. For many Israelis, it was reclaiming a historic heartland. For Palestinians, it was the slow seizure of land left for a future of their own. The Accords were meant to be a 5-year interim plan for Palestinian self-governance, intended to lead to a final peace treaty. As part of this plan, the West Bank was divided into 3 zones: Area A, Area B, Area C. Area A, the main Palestinian cities, full Palestinian Authority control. Area B, surrounding villages, Palestinian civil control and joint security. Area C was the game changer. Over 60% of the West Bank, under full Israeli civil and security control, contained most agricultural land, contained key water resources, contained all Israeli settlements. The arrangement was supposed to be temporary. More of Area C would be transferred. But that transfer never fully happened. Instead, settlement construction accelerated in Area C, solidifying Israeli control. As of today, 2025, the map of the West Bank looks like a slice of Swiss cheese. Palestinian areas A and B are disconnected islands in a sea of Area C. Movement between islands is restricted by checkpoints, walls, and settler-only roads. In Gaza, the situation is even more dire. Israel withdrew settlers and soldiers in 2005. It then imposed a tight blockade, controlling borders, airspace, and coastline. Recent conflicts in 2025 reports show new buffer zones inside Gaza, shrinking and bisecting the Strip. The map from the mandate to today is a story of continuous shrinkage for Palestinians. What was once 100% of the land is now fragmented enclaves, perhaps less than 15%. The human cost is staggering. Millions of refugees, families separated by barriers, a generation with no true freedom. The ever-changing lines are the architecture of a daily struggle.